Hey guys, it's time to Nefis and Chill, and this video we're going to be going over the new big change to Alkosh. And basically, Alkosh, with this new change comes Stonethorn DLC patch, is if they keep it the way it is right now, is going to go from being a best in slot to god tier. I mean, it's going to be really hard, even in forming content, I feel like, to not use it. That's just how good it's going to be. Now, those of you who know me, I'm not one of those people who are like, Alkosh is at a tank set, or that I would ever want it nerfed. But I feel like in some small ways, it's kind of an unhealthy change. I'll explain why that is. So the biggest change to Alkosh, or the only change that's pretty big, is that the 5th piece bonus, when you activate a synergy, you send a shockwave from your position that deals X amount of physical damage and an additional X amount of physical damage over 10 seconds. Reduces the physical and spell resistance of any enemy hit by the amount of the initial hit's damage done for duration. If you've noticed that by now, compared to your live tooltip, that 4.3k physical damage on the initial hit is quite a bit over the penetration provided by Alkosh on Greymoor Live. And the reason being is they basically uncapped it and said, okay, whatever you hit on that initial hit for Alkosh is the debuff, the armor penetration you're going to provide for the rest of your group. And that's pretty insane. Two things. The first thing, I think probably the devs probably wanted this to be more of a damage dealer set. We sort of got... I sort of got this feeling when I was looking at the Greymoor PTS patch notes or live patch notes when they designated, you know, like Yandir's Might and Roaring Opportunist and the Heavy Armor set as healer, or not healer, sorry, as DPS or whatever sets instead of saying Heavy Armor set or medium armor set like they usually do. And I'm like, okay, Alkosh is probably next. But surprisingly, the change to this is it doesn't cement this set as a DPS set at all. Yes, you may be thinking, okay, now we can just put it on a Stam DD or something, and they'll provide a higher penetration debuff. There's two reasons why you wouldn't want to do this. The first reason is a DPS loss to that person who's going to wear Alkosh. Second, it's actually cemented this more as a tank set, because that tooltip, this tooltip is not actually what's going to happen on a target, especially a target that's debuffed. So let me explain how this works. The Alkosh damage over time, just disregard that, that's whatever. The Alkosh initial hit is proc damage. It's a proc set. You cannot buff this with, you know, like the regular old stats or Harmony. Yes, you would think Harmony would affect it, but Harmony only affects the damage of a synergy, not the set's proc damage. So if you want to try Harmony, I would not suggest doing so. Weapon damage, spell damage, as you can see here, doesn't affect it. What does affect that damage is going to be percentage modifiers, such as from champion points, mostly champion points, such as 100 Mighty. That gives you 15% more physical damage, which is Alkosh. 70 Piercing, which gives you more penetration with Alkosh. And 100 Master at Arms. The reason why, again, this cements this as a tank set more so than a DPS set is if you want to get more out of that initial hit on Alkosh, you're going to be speccing a bit more heavily away from things like Precise Strikes or Thaumaturge or whatever, what have you, towards these 3 perks, right? Or mainly these 2 perks, Master at Arms and Mighty. So it's going to be DPS loss from that, plus the set itself doesn't really provide much DPS anyway, compared to what you could be running in the next patch. For tanks, the blue CP is the least important CP allocation you can do for your tanks. As a tank in ESO, the biggest, or rather the most important CP allocations mainly come from your red and green tree, for sustain and for mitigation. Blue tree is just kind of something extra on the side, let's say if you want the last stand perk, or whatever. Or the Atronak perk, or the Tactician perk if you want to roll dodge to set Ohms off balance, for example, or something very niche. So as you can see, it's no problem for a tank to run this. And that's how you get that tooltip, right? Now the second thing I want to talk about is, well, the penetration. You may think it's small, but again, percentage modifiers. So things like Major Berserk, Martial Knowledge, Zen's Redress, stuff like that, like Major Vulnerability. Yes, typical things you will see in a raid will affect the proc damage of Alkosh. And if you see here on these combat metrics reports, you can, if you look at the roar of Alkosh initial damage, it's 7.9k. I'm giving my group 7.9k on a raid dummy. Now, a raid dummy is already debuffed to a certain extent, but again, you don't have MK Zens, you don't have major vulnerability on the dummy typically. This was with major vulnerability, and of course, we do have that set. We do have other modifiers we can put in a raid composition, so this can easily probably go up to like 9 or 10k, depending on the groups. And that's as a tank. Now, how do you spec for it? Well, you might be asking, well, you probably sacrifice a lot to go for those numbers. Not really. I mean, you can do like 3 or 4 sturdy. Here I did all divines just for the heck of it, and you can have the lover. I mean, most experienced tanks won't really give a shit, or won't really be affected by using the lover mundus or some divines, which by the way is also getting a buff next patch in addition to the infused trait for weapons. And you also can buff this with Malakat's Band of Brutality. This might be a bit overkill at a certain threshold, but this is certainly an option because Malakat's Band of Brutality also affects your damage done with proc sets by 25%. You can have like, I don't know, a one-piece monster set that gives penetration and Alkosh on one shoulder and 2 jewelry and weapons. Or you can have Malakas with monster set and have Alkosh in the back bar, but that does take away some penetration. Let's say if you're running sharpened, but I testing it, it's like not that big of a difference. And again, we are missing some damage modifiers to give more of a kick to the Alkosh initial tick. But yeah, that's the change. That's the major change, and you can apply this to 6 to 7k unbuffed penetration to trash as well. So let's not forget that. There's a lot of moving parts in this patch. I'm not quite sure if I can conclude that this is a unhealthy change, but I have a suspicion it's going to be an unhealthy change because it definitely somewhat creates a skill gap, or rather widens the skill gap between tanks who can do this stuff or tanks who can't do this stuff for their group. And it is actually certainly an interesting concept in terms of, let's say your tank can't achieve higher numbers on Alkosh, but you can still custom tailor your group penetration to your unique Alkosh debuff number, which is gonna definitely be interesting. Custom tailoring your penetration to what tank can achieve. But also, we also can't forget that with certain item sets, along with Alkosh, Torgs, whatever, depending on the raid composition, you won't need as a DPS or a damage dealer things in spell erosion. You probably won't need sharpened on your weapons. You probably won't need piercing, or very, very little piercing in raid. So definitely the Alkosh change has a lot of far-reaching effects that we obviously can't test outside of raids. And I think even for, PvP ball groups or organized PvP raids, this set can now be a consideration. I mean, you don't have to be a tank in PvP to use it. You can obviously be a Stam DD or something, right? And to get that fat tooltip, to get that fat armor shred for the rest of your group. I mean, I can definitely imagine timing ultimates / synergies as a ball group and just walking up to a Zerg or a loose group of people, or honestly even other ball groups, and proccing this as you dump your ultis and your proxy deaths or whatever. That's a lot of penetration, so that's something to consider as well at the moment. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Alkosh change. That's the big hubbub. I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you guys think about the Alkosh change? Are you guys looking forward to it? Do you think it's unhealthy? Do you think they should tone it down? In my opinion, I would be very surprised if this makes it to live as it is. It just seems a bit too overtuned to me. I hate saying that because, I mean, Alkosh is such a great staple set for tanking in in-game content. But this, I don't know. I think this is a bit too much, but we'll see. I mean, again, it is certainly interesting, but I'm not sure if it's completely healthy for the game. Because again, not just for 12-man content, you can take this now to 4-man content. And it's kind of hard to argue with this now. It's like trying to deny it as a tank set now, or trying to argue that it's not that great in 4-man. Definitely harder now. Definitely harder. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, and this change is one of but many, and it could just affect a bit more than what I described in the video. And again, the setup can be a typical setup. Like we still have Yonam Crit and we still have Alkosh, still taking setup, and we're still getting these numbers. But yeah, thanks for watching as always, guys. Really appreciate your support. I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe and have fun.